Hello everyone, my name is Saksham Dikshit and this is my channel Pentest Diary. So today I'll make another video on the same series of Solidity programming series, and in this video itself I'll try to cover the concept which we call it as a function modifier. So what exactly is the function modifier? We will try to understand the function modifier, why we require the function modifier in a smart contract, and each and everything related to that. We'll start with the theory part and then go for the practical section for it. So modifier is a concept which I can say mainly utilized in a smart contract just to reduce the codes. Like taking example, like if you have multiple functions and if you want to use the same code in each and every function itself, so instead of utilizing it in multiple function itself, we just make it a modifier and we are trying to call that modifier inside of the function signature itself, so that it's bit easy for us to make our smart contract bit efficient and it's look good for us to just read that appropriately. Just defining one smart contract. Taking example, like if you have the same code is almost in 100 functions which you're using inside of the smart contract, then in that case it's difficult for you to mention the same code again and again, and it's also consume the gas also for it a lot, like as it's defining at multiple location itself. So it's far better go ahead further with the modifier just to define it in one place and utilize it any place wheresoever you require it. So now we go with the theory part itself, which I have mentioned the steps about it. So in Solidity, a function modifier is a way to add custom logic to function in a contract. So it's a custom logic to define inside of the function itself. For the function, a custom logic wheresoever we are defining it, that we call it as a modifier. A modifier are typically used to perform common checks or actions that need to be executed before or after the function is called. Okay, so before the function and after the function is get called, that modifier can be triggered. I'll just tell you that about it once we are seeing the code itself, and they help in reducing the code duplication and improving readability. So duplication is as obvious, like we are not using the same code at multiple places, we have to use it at one in the modifier itself, and then we can utilize at multiple places itself. Okay. Now, modifier can be combined and reused across multiple functions and within a contract, making Solidity code more modular and easier to maintain. That's understood. This is a special type function which wheresoever we are mentioning a modifier, it's a type of special function similar like a constructor, but there's a difference between a constructor and the difference between a modifier. In constructor, we are using only once, but in modifier, we are using we can use many modifiers inside of the same contract, but in case of constructor, only one constructor we can utilize in a whole smart contract. Okay, and we can use modifier to reuse the code. That's understood about it. Other than that, I think modifier can take an input also. That's also I'll just try to get it covered in my code itself when I'm seeing the demonstration, showcasing the demonstration of the whole code itself, so that you can see that actual functionality about the modifier and what's the need of it. This is just a plus point for us when you're writing any smart contract. We want that smart contract to be more efficient. Then in that case only we are preferring with a modifier, so that we are reducing the code using at one place and can utilize it multiple places itself. Okay, so that's also one of the difference which I told you about with the constructor and the modifier. Like don't be confused about it, why we are not using constructor instead of using a modifier. We can use constructor at one place itself wheresoever we want that to be get executed once, but if we want a multiple modifier, then in that case that's a different case itself. Okay, now we go to the system just to see the code exactly itself. I have prepared two code for this modifier itself. Just go through it. I'll just explain each and every line for it, and then I'll try to run that, deploy it, and just show you that exactly how the things are going on in the modifier itself. Okay, let me go to the system now and show you that code. So proceeding further with the practical part itself. So this is the code which is for the modifier we are using it. I have to edit a lot of things on the go of the video itself. So just to get it explain you, I have write the whole code itself. I have not removed the unwanted stuff which you're not looking for it. As we are using the modifier, we don't want the whole things to be mentioned over there itself, but I just want to explain you first and then I'll try to get it removed that, so that you are able to understand what actually it means by the modifier itself. Okay, so this is the syntax which you are using it as obvious itself, and the name of the contract is modifier. Now proceeding further, we are using one function which we call it as a function 1, and we make this a public. We defining as a pure itself as we are returning something, and other than that we are using test code itself. Just forget about this right away. I'll just tell you that once we are going to the modifier, you are able to understand why we are using a test code over here itself. Now we are returning a value. Okay, so we are returning a memory itself, and other than that we are defining one of the code inside of it, that is a for loop. Okay, now we are returning a value. This is the value we are returning it. So we are not returning a address, we are returning a string itself. That was the reason we have mentioned this. Now going further with that, this is a function 2 which we are make it as a pure itself. Test code we are defining over, which you have to we cover it in the later phase itself when we are seeing the modifier. Now we are returning an unsigned integer value itself, and we are returning over here is underscore x equal to 20, and we are making one for loop. This I'll explain you about it. If any code itself you're seeing something like this, it means like even inside of the code itself, if you're seeing underscore x, whatever that variable name, if you're seeing over there equal to something, so it means understood like it written something. Okay, so this line also means returning. If you're mentioning return equal to return space 20 colon, then in that case also that is also understood. But if anywhere you are seeing such type of thing, just take it this as a return value. This is a return value only. Okay, wheresoever we are defining one variable over here and we are using the same variable over here itself, then in that case this returning a value. Okay, now going to the next section for it, where we are defining a next function which we call it as a function 3. Over here also we are defining as a view public, returning the address, and over here it's a mlg.center, that's the address of the header itself through which we are deploying that. Now we are coming to the main portion which we call it as a modifier. So this is the syntax for it. Modifier keyword, we have to use it, then we have to define the name of the modifier, then we have to go inside of it and the code which we want to be get it repeated. So over here itself in the above one, you can see like multiple time I'm using the for loop in, it's the same condition, I'm using it for all three function itself. So instead of using it for all three function, why not I just have to get it defined over here itself. So I'll just define it inside of this modifier, and then I'll just make it underscore this, and then I'll just close this smart contract. Okay, now you might be thinking like why I'm using this. So that's also, I'll just try to get it covered once we are executing that. So before executing that, I'll just let you know about it. So now what we have to do, we have to modify the code. Now we have to remove this as we not required, as we are directly using a modifier. Now this one is also not required. Okay, and other than that, I think this is done, this is done, this is done. Perfect, everything is completed. Now what we have to do, perfect, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. This we have to define as function, this we have to define as return. We have to make this coming up, it's not coming up itself. Perfect, now the whole code is ready. So over here itself, as we have defined the name of the modifier as test code, so how we integrate that with our function itself. So that was the reason we are using this keyword over here itself. So this we call it as a function signature, where we are integrating our modifier inside of it. So when we are integrating our modifier inside of this, then in that case only, once that function is get triggered, our modifier will be get it integrated and utilize it over there itself. How it is happening, so I'll just explain you about it. Once that function is triggered, this thing will be get a trigger, and once it reaches to this position. Okay, so that was the reason in my theory part I have mentioned it. It's before and after both the cases itself, it is utilized in between of it. So the function is triggered, then after that test code is get triggered. The request is going to the test code itself, and once the test code is reached over there itself, then after that the whole code, whatever, like this is just example over here itself, there might be a 20 lines, 30 lines or 100 lines we have defined inside of the modifier, which you want to get it repeated in multiple function itself. So accordingly we have to get it defined. Once the whole code, whatever we have defined inside of the modifier is get executed, once it's reached to this point, so this is indicator through which it's going send it back the request back to the function. So whatsoever the originator function this keyword is sending back the request to the same function back, so that the rest portion of it get triggered. Let me repeat once again. Once we trigger the function, it switches to test code. Test code is a modifier. The request is going forward to the test modifier itself. Whatever the code instead of the modifier we have defined it's get triggered. Once it's get triggered, reach to this point, the functionality of this indication is it to just send back the request back to the same origin function wheresoever we have called the modifier. Once it's reached back, it will trigger the remaining portion present inside of the function. So right now as we are returning something, so that will get triggered. If we have defined some code also, that also be possible. So first the modifier get it triggered, the things get it completed, then this indicator send it back the request back to the function. Then whatever the code inside of the function, instead of having a modifier also, if we have, like, take example, this is a similar code which we are defining inside of this modifier, but there might be a possibility we have 100 more lines which is different from other functions. So that code to be get it executed just after this is get triggered, this indication send it back request to the function, that code can be get it triggered, and then once that code is get triggered and the whole function is terminated, then the request coming back to the modifier. That's it. So it's a three-way conversation happening. 3 times it's get working. First the request is get it triggered, then the request is send it back, and the request, once the function is completely complete the stuffs about it, then in that case it's coming back to the modifier and the program get terminated. That's the thing. That's the stuff actually I just want to get it explain you. So remember that it's working in 3 ways itself. Okay, now we are proceeding. I think that's the stuff which this is most important for us to mention over here. So let me compile the code and make you understand about it. So let me deploy this. This is one contract only. Let me deploy this. So if we're talking about the function 1, this is get triggered. Function 2, this will be, and function 3, this will be. Okay, so you can able to understand, like, instead of having the same code in multiple places, we try to get it replace that with a single code to be single code to be get it defined inside of the modifier, and that modifier we are calling inside of each and every function, and along with that we can trigger the code which we have it inside of the function also. It doesn't matter, like, everything we have to get it defined inside of the modifier. We have to get it defined the function inside of the modifier also. Along with that, whatever the code we have it inside of the function also, that also we can trigger it. Okay, that's both the functionality, we can do it together itself. So I hope you are able to understand this code. This is programming code number 1. Let me go to the next code itself, where I just have to explain you about the functionality where we can use, how it is different from the constructor, and how we can utilize 2 modifier in the same code itself. Okay, let me go to the another smart contract. Now in this code itself, this is straightforward syntax. This is another code. Okay, other than that, so over here itself we'll try to understand how we are utilizing 2 modifier in the same smart contract. So we are defining the name of the contract as auction. Now we are defining one of the state variable over here itself, that we have defined address public, and we just making the name of the variable as owner, and we are giving a value as msg.sender, that's the address. Now we are going inside of it, and then we are defining one of the modifier. It doesn't mean like we have to put the modifier on the top or on the bottom itself. It depends on it wheresoever we want it. Okay, so we can define on the top also, like in my previous video I have defined the modifier at the end of the code itself, and even at the starting of it you can make it according, but make sure that you have to get it defined appropriately, so that it will be like whoever the person is reading the code, that person can able to understand very clearly, instead of just defining at the wrong places. The person, it's difficult for the reader just to understand that code and get it identify where exactly the modifier is. Okay, make sure that you have to make a proper code itself in a proper format. Now we are defining a modifier itself. Over here itself you can see, like, I have defining a modifier name as only owner. Now going inside of it, this is a condition. We are using a require, you all are aware about it. So require condition, we are using it over here itself, and we are defining if the owner equal to msg.sender, like whatever the value is coming under over here itself, and whatever the msg.sender, like if it's the same, then in that case this will be run, otherwise this will be get trigger. So if this will be false, then in that case this will be get a trigger. Okay, now this is, you are aware about it, like once we are calling it back to the function itself, that is, this is the indicator which send the request back to the function itself, and the remaining code will be get it executed. Now we are going inside of this function itself. So this is function where we are defining a function name as a start auction. we are defining as a start option. Now proceeding further with that, and we are defining over here itself, we are defining a name of the modifier as only owner. Now the another one is a stop option. Over here itself I am defining a name of the modifier is only owner. This I'll remove it, no need of it. If you are putting any code then it's okay, otherwise I'm just removing it, no need of this also. The third function is a check status for it, and over here also we are using a modifier name. I'll just make it public and view itself. Now this portion I think it's a bit clear to you, as we are using the same type of thing which we are using in a previous section for it. Now what we have to do, so over here itself we are defining unsigned integer public age equal to 30. Now we are defining one modifier which we are taking the input also. So it's a different thing which I'm not doing in my previous code, but I'm using over here itself. We can take an input also in modifier and can use it as per our need itself. So over here itself, whatever the age we are giving a value as 30, we want that to be get it changed. To get it changed, we are using a modifier over here itself, so that we can use that, we can change the age using the modifier only. So we are taking the input, pass it to the modifier, do that process, and we get the output accordingly. Okay, that's the thing I'm trying to do it over here. So we are not returning any value, so we are using directly a function, and inside of the function we are defining this. This is a function name itself, change age, and we are taking an input. That was the reason I'm defining underscore y. Now public, and this is the modifier name we are passing the value also. That was the reason I'm just defining a name and passing a value over here itself. Once this function is get triggered, the value will be inserted by the user. This will be forwarded directly to the modifier, and this value is going directly to the modifier itself, and the age equal to age plus x. So whatever the age is it 30, and whatever the value we are passing it over here itself, that's, let's take example 5, then in that case 30 will become it. And this indicator can send back the request once again back, and I don't have anything as to be returned, anything like that. Then in that case this will be terminated back. Okay, there's nothing will see it, and if we are trying to see the value of the age once again, then we can see it like it become 35. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Now let me run this code and make you understand more about it. So in this case, let me deploy this. Once we deploy this, so this is bit clear to you. Check status, bit clear. Owner, state, start options, stop option, bit clear. I'm not explaining those things. It looks like a similar type of stuffs which we are doing it in our previous code also. Now this is most important. We're trying to pass the value as 5. So this is going to the modifier, process it, and coming back. So if I'm checking the value initially as 30, if I'll click on the change age and check the age once again, it's become 35. So modifier can do both the stuff. We can use a number of modifiers instead of the smart contract as per our need, and wheresoever we wanted that. So it's not having any restrictions. Similar like a constructor, we have to use only one constructor in a smart contract, but in modifier we can use it as per our need, and wheresoever we want to reduce the code, we can use. So this is all about the stuff which I want to get it covered in this video itself. I hope you are able to understand the whole code, the understanding of the modifier, why we need the modifier, and how it is different from the constructor itself, and as per the need itself, to reduce the code itself, how we can utilize the modifier itself, like we don't want the same code, and along with that, whatever the changes we have it inside of the function, if we want that to be, that code to be get a trigger, how can we trigger that along with using an indicator itself. So those things I'll try my best to get it covered in this video itself. I hope you are able to understand the whole code, whole functionality of the modifier itself. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel, and if you like to provide your feedback, you can provide your feedback in the comment section of this video. Thank you so much once again. Take care. Bye bye.